Hello, and welcome to another episode of From Inside. My name is Lori Roberts, and I'm here tonight with Dr. Sal Benanti and another one of our center consultants, Kristen Huetz. Tonight, we're going to talk about finding calm within chaos. It seems to tie in really well with what we were talking about last week, which was resistance. Wanting to stay away from or prevent the things that make us feel uncomfortable or frighten us or give us that sense of losing control. And so tonight just seems to be a natural evolution, whether it was intended or not, in this conversation, in this dialogue, which is what we always do here at the center. We try our best to do anyway. So, what does finding calm within chaos mean? It means many different things for many different people, and that's what we're going to explore tonight. So, Dr. Benanti, would you like to begin?
Well, as you're saying that, I was thinking how we all are living within chaos. The furthest reaches of our imagination, there is not the same kind of order that we have in our homes, or we try to have in our drawers and our closets, to put life in order, our schedules. And then beyond that, it goes out to a periphery where you have a little less control over those things. And then things way out where, chaos theory says that things are moving towards some type of continual organization, but, we don't see it. And when we look at our lives right now, everyone's life has been sort of upset in many ways, some terribly, and some not so bad. But yet we all have had to restore our order, our balance, our calm to the greatest extent that we can. And, if you look at your life in terms of the decades of your life, you usually can see through those times there were storms. There were times where you had to go into the root cellar, that you had to find some place of calm, some place of centering, some place of balance. And the more we do that, the more we find we have access to that, and the more we can access it. We can go back there. We can find that spot. But if we are always allowing ourselves to get pulled into the stirring pulls and draws and energies of we then lose that capacity. Well, no, not the capacity. We lose the ability, because we're weakened in our ability to get ourselves back, pull ourselves back together, whatever we need to say.
I feel like so many people right now are experiencing something that I just experienced, which was losing a loved one and not having the ability to gather, to mourn, to be together. And while it wasn't a COVID-related death, it was a heartbreaking death. And I can't hug the people that in my family. We all had this terrible loss. And we're just, so it feels very chaotic. It feels very confusing. And yet there's a part of me that would love to just curl up in a corner and cry. And of course I did cry, and I still am crying for here and there, but I can't just curl up in a corner and stick my thumb in my mouth. I need to move forward, not only for those around me, but in honor of the person that we lost, who would not want me to give up and not move forward with my life. So there is chaos, and I think that is there for probably a lot of us right now. So many people have lost loved ones. So many people have lost jobs, are living with food insecurity, are living with fears, and are still in a place where we all need to live our lives and move forward and try to do the best that we can to find our center within all the chaos that's here. And there is a lot of chaos right now in so many areas.
And you think through generations where they had their episodes of chaos, warring tribes coming in, fires, tortures, all kinds of craziness. And every generation has their times in which things are running smooth and things are going rough. It's happened in each of our own individual lives. I'm sure everyone listening, we don't get through life on a straight line. But learning to find your center, to return to center, to return to center when you get pulled off. Notice that you are getting pulled off and go back and hold on. I remember years ago when I was studying with Joseph Campbell, he said the importance, and for those of you who may not know, he studied the world's religions and mythologies and such. There's a whole series on Channel 13 with him. And he said that, all the world's religions and wisdom traditions point to the fact that we have within us a balance point, a center, if you will, where there's calm and there's order and there's peace. He said, and one of the simplest ways to access that is in your own personal life. Have a place that to you is a sacred place. For some people, it becomes a temple or a church or an ashram. He said, if you don't have access to that, let it be a chair in your room. You don't put laundry on it. You don't do anything else with it. That's your sacred spot, your sacred place to go into and to let the world go away, to restore yourself. His a saying he often said, I think actually someone said to me, it was in the Bible, it's easy to be holy in the temple. Mm-hmm. But try going out into the chaos, into the madness, into the swirling, whirling craziness that can go on in this world. So to take that peace with you. When we leave church services, often the priest or the rabbi or whatever would say, peace be with you. Peace be with you. Take the peace with you. Easier said than done in this day and age where we're pulled in so many directions at the same time. It's hard to find a balance point. But we practice, we try. Whether it's a migraine headache or it's problems within your home or financial problems or problems at work or other physical problems you might be going through, marital problems, employment problems, political problems. There are all kinds of problems all over the place. But how can we find a center point within ourselves to bring with us into those situations and find some kind of peace within that chaos, as people did in the death camps, as Nelson Mandela, many, many people have done. You find a place from which you can bring your good energy forth. Easier said than done, and it can't be done 24/7, but we get more and more of it going in our lives, hopefully.
Years and years ago, I was diagnosed, this is I think over 15 years ago now, with what they decided was Lyme disease. It really hadn't been completely pinpointed, but that was what they were using, the term that we come up with and how to approach the treatment. And in the beginning, when we were searching for a diagnosis, I was very, very ill, and that was an extreme time of chaos for me. My children were very small, and of course, I was a very active mom, and my health was declining, and it was making it very difficult for me to care for my family, let alone care for myself. And one thing that I learned, and you and I, Sal, were working on this back then, was learning how to create that center point, that soft, quiet space, which I did not even know could possibly exist at the time. And it began for me, my space was so small, it was literally between these two ears. This is where I had to begin, because the world that I was living in at that time, again, was so busy, and there was so much that I hadn't learned how to create that space. So right here, I asked for a pair of noise-canceling headphones, and I began to listen to, just music with no lyrics. Right. This was it. Absolutely the most peaceful, soft, and quiet music I could find. And I would put those headphones on, and I would just ask my family for just 20 minutes or just 30 minutes. And because even the lightest sound at that point, I was so out of balance at that point. Talk about chaos. Mm-hmm. So out of balance physically that even the slightest noise would just get my heart racing. Mm-hmm. And so, and that's where I began. And now, 15 years later, I have an entire home that's now that space here has expanded out to become my home. Exactly. And my children and my friends and the people that I've chosen to bring in my life, it has slowly expanded beyond
Right.
And now here I am 15 years later, faced with another condition that we're searching for a diagnosis. Just echoes of what had happened before, of course, are coming back. But now I recognize that as I am in the process of looking for a diagnosis or searching for that diagnosis, I have a different set of tools now that I didn't have back then. And I can still put on my noise canceling headphones, or I can just now with that practice, the years and years of meditation study, the years and years of just, like I said, moving things outward, I can clear that fear away. And when my heart starts to beat, or when I start to begin to feel my imagination race about what this could be, I'm able to catch it now and bring myself back and to recognize that I don't know, but I found my way through before, and I will find my way through again. And it's become not about what I achieved during that time, but about who I'm becoming during the time.
Exactly.
And if the first round encouraged me to become as strong and flexible as I am now, well, gee, I'm in for who knows where it's going to take me from here.
And as you said, it's like the logo of the center of a spiral emerging from a box, and you have a spiral. We kind of come around again to the same spot, but this time you can handle it a little differently. You learn some things, and now you hit it again a third time, and then a fourth time. And what is that spot? Well, we have high points in life, and then we have low points in life. But we keep hitting them. After a while, it's like, this is another one of those things. And you feel connected to all of it, and not like you're on a little box car on a track, but you feel all of it is your life, and it continually expands into more of, the balance that we've talked about in the prior videos. And being able then to find your center spot in there. And have your life set up that it supports that, encourages that, and maintains it to some extent. Bring more order in to the chaos.
And as you said, it's not a perfect practice. This is not perfect. There are still times that, yes, I become frightened and I start to think about, well, what's going to happen if this comes up or that comes up? And but again, it just is now easier for me than it was 15 years ago. Easier for me to come back, and easier for me to recognize that I can ask for help. Recognize that I can turn to my resources that I already have in place. Those things that I hadn't known how to do before. There are even skills beyond just learning how to calm myself.
Well, we're not taught that. We're not even taught how to be stressed. We just get so much stress put upon us that it becomes normalized, and we think this is the way it's supposed to be. And then we start to learn through experience. How do I get away from the anxiety and the fear and the depression and the doubt? And how do I move toward a center point of calm? That's a good word, or balance, or whatever you want to call it. But you get the experiential evidence. It's self-evident that, wow, I'm noticing, I'm aware, I'm beginning to get, so I better tend to this. Or, as I used to do when I was younger, just wait till it passes. And it might be a day, a week, or a month. And here it is again. I feel so angry. What is it? Because stress had come in. I wasn't aware of it. I didn't respond to it. I didn't process it, and it stayed. Or chaos is another word you might want to use for stress. This negative energy comes in. I'm letting it come in, and then you hit your tipping point, and you either drop down to the bottom or you shoot out the top like a volcano. So it's like, how do you become aware of your experience of life with its balance and its imbalance, its stress and its ease? It's chaos. If you go way out there, you get destroyed. If you stay totally inside and go nowhere, you get too lonely. So how do you become part of the world and do what you can to bring a little more order, a little more light, a little less chaos, a little more calm within the everyday situations, whether it's with your own body or your own mind or your own emotions, or with your own people and places and things that are part of your life. Can you find that sacred space where the good energy is, to use the simplest terms, to bring and influence what's going on? Yes, you can. But we have to learn how to get there first so we can tap it and do something with it.
That's exactly what's been going on. I feel like I am, every time we're on this, I come back to the same theme, The theme being that I have to recognize for myself that whatever is happening around me, it isn't specifically happening to me. It is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And if I allow myself to feel like this is happening to me and make it too much about myself, rather than being able to take that step back and viewing what's happening with a more with a healthier perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If I allow myself to completely become encompassed by it, then as we've talked about before, I become that emotion, or I become that event, and things happen. And as you said, some things are within our control, and the further out we go, the less control we have. And I don't necessarily want to relinquish control completely. However, there is a balance of what I can control and what I can't control. More importantly, what I can control is how I respond to whatever is occurring. And sometimes things happen that are just terrible. And there is really nothing I can do to prevent it. Certainly, none of us can prevent a death from occurring. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And it happens to all of us at some point. And I know, as we've mentioned before, that, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I did not and could not handle things the way I can now. And as you were both saying, it's that experience. It's learning how to cope. It's learning how to handle these things as we go through them. And each event and each emotion that comes with those events brings me to a place where I become stronger and more capable of moving through. I never like to think about things as like, getting over it. I don't perceive it that way, because if I get over it, then I don't know if I've learned enough from each thing. Oh, and I don't get over the loss of someone I love. I move through those events, and I learn how to cope with the realities of life. Death is a reality of life, and we have to cope with that, because we all experience it at some point or another. As is illness, sometimes we are affected that way, and it's not the easiest thing in the world, but we do have the capacity to handle it with grace, as Lori is doing, and authenticity. I want to be authentic enough to know that I'm going to feel emotions, and I can experience those, and I can express them in a healthy way, and I can move through whatever's going on.
And you know that because you have done it.
Yes, and I'm continuing to do it, and practice. I believe firmly that when we say, when we talk about the work and the practice, the only way to really practice is to go through these things and to use whatever methods we can, whether it's meditation or, for me, walking. Walking is, I've said it before, it's my form of moving meditation, and I feel a sense of peace when I'm walking, and it's how I cope with a lot of stuff.
And so if someone said, no, you shouldn't walk, what you should do instead is something else, because studies have shown the other thing works better. Well, you could chase those studies around, or you could just pay attention to your own experience and say, you know what, this is working for me. Right. This is what I need right now. This is right for me.
Exactly.
You said before, recognizing this isn't going into a situation where there's, when you're going into troubled waters, and you to say that it's not about yourself. What I've experienced in my life is that at those moments when myself is most expansive, when I've gone to the deeper part of me inside, it's like all part of myself. It is about myself in that regard, and that myself is in the fullest, is all the people, places, things within my sphere of influence. And when we get stressed, myself included, that comes in to where now it's, it's the stress, it's the containment, it's the ego. This is not fair. I want to control it. This isn't right. I'm supposed to, should have, would have. And as opposed to being able to be centered enough to say, well, wow, look at the stress coming in. Let me get into the calm, my calm place, and let me open myself and let it just like the winds blow through and see when and where and how I could be of good influence here in some way. Easier said than done, lifelong practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm tired and hungry, I'm not so good at doing that when I'm well rested and,
Just to clarify, yeah, and it's not that it's not about me. I guess it's about the larger me within us.
Exactly.
And it isn't, and it isn't happening to me. It's happening.
Yes.
And,
yes. Well,
a child with cancer is wrong. There's nobody who could disagree with that. But it happened. And while I'm heartbroken about it, it didn't happen to me. It happened, and we have to work, as you said, to be a good influence in the best way that we can. And I mean, we and my family, but we as humans, if we can give the best of ourselves through even the worst situations, I don't know. I find it soothing for me.
Yes.
On a personal level, if I can be of service in some way, there are bad things and hard things that happen, but if I can find a way to ease somebody else's discomfort, it eases mine as well.
And that's the great masters who speak about these things in such depth talk about at the deepest level, there is no other. It's where we're all one. And, Lori, in your Reiki, with being able to be in a room with people and even remotely now, and be able to feel that connection with them. And people on the other end are saying, wow, something just happened here. My stress just sort of released. Without
even needing to understand why, but just committing yourself to the process.
Exactly.
And just taking one step at a time. To say, okay, I'm just going to follow this prompt just to breathe and to see where this takes me. And oftentimes the only thing that gets in our way, actually not oftentimes, every time the only thing that gets in our way is us. And so I even think about, finding calm within the chaos, how about becoming the calm within the chaos? And that's what I witness people doing every single time, I share a moment on the table or remotely with someone, that I'm witnessing this person moving from their own chaos, whatever it is that they've taken in from their outside experiences and now internalized and not processed. That's what I'm seeing with people when I work with them. For those who aren't familiar with Reiki, it's just an ancient relaxation technique that helps people to truly process stressful emotions, even physical conditions that are associated with stress, and so it's helping people to learn how to become that calm.
It's helping people to become back to becoming themselves. One of the taglines we have at the center is "Come to the center for optimum living and come home to yourself."
Yes.
So you're there, and they have this not the stuff that's not who they are, the stress, the tension, the chaos they've taken in. That's not who they are. That's not who we are. When we feel stress, we are feeling stress. But when we become the stress and we are stressed, then we've lost ourselves. So how do we get back to ourselves?
And that's when we create more stress too.
Exactly.
Because it's not only, the chaos, this chaos, it's oftentimes when we, experience chaos coming at us, a stress of any kind, that, okay, now the determining factor is, okay, as you've both said in so many beautiful ways, how am I going to respond? And what's going into flashing through my head was my kids are all lifeguards, and when they go out in the water, they've been trained to how to handle someone who's drowning. And depending on who you are the one who's coming in and saving, whether it's saving yourself or saving another, helping to make another's life better. But if someone is flailing in the water and freaking out, I think about when so many other things can go wrong in life. Do we flail around and lose our minds and maybe put other people in danger or make the water even choppier? Or do we, learn how to come in, and maybe we've practiced enough that we know how to keep our heads above the water and actually know how to relax enough that we float and trust that the water is going to carry us. And so, it's that kind of balance that we can learn to develop. This is something that you've said before. This is innately who we are. but it's a skill that's been forgotten over time. And so how do we practice? And, ideally the practice would come before the chaos happens. It's always a good time. I mean, right now, a lot going on right now, but we still have these moments. That's why creating that space is important. Creating that space for ourselves is so important, so that that's the moment where we can practice. Even I had a really, really busy day of a lot of running around, and I just wanted to feel at my best before we met tonight. And so I put my little timer on my phone for just 5 minutes. And that gave me, rather than giving my brain the job of taking a peek at the clock every couple of seconds, I just wanted to know that I could completely let go of everything. And just for 5 minutes, I just created that space that I had not been able to create for myself the entire day.
That's like the chair in the bedroom that Joseph Campbell was talking about. Having just a spot, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, a minute, something. And certainly the sooner we begin this process, the better, because we have more years to live learning these things. But I think of a client I had many years ago who, this was in the middle of all the other giant mess on Wall Street, and he was very much involved on a very high level with these things. And I remember he came and he said, I feel like I'm in the middle of a war. And when I come here, it's like I'm in a bunker, just for an hour a week. And then I go back into the war. He says, and you're like teaching me how to use a sword, and there's like bullets and swords coming at me all over the place. And I remember thinking to myself, that's the hardest time, when you're in the midst of all the chaos. But his process, my process, everyone's process is always, well, how do I begin? How do I begin right here and right now to begin to find a balance place, or 5 minutes, or a chair, or someplace? And meditation and mindfulness is a beautiful way to learn to kind of drop beneath your tension. Go to a place, the eye of the storm, and then be there, find others who resonate with it, read things, watch things, do things, walking, whatever, that bring you to that peace place, that calm place. And then you have more calm to bring with you out into your everyday life. And don't expect to hit it 100%. But if you get close to it, it's like, maybe not be the hottest shower you want, but it might be warm enough that, okay, this warms me a bit. And then you find like-minded others who can help encourage that as you do. You alone must continually become your best self, and you cannot continually become your best self alone. So with that, I will ask each of you to wrap this up in a nice, pretty bow, and then we will go our way.
Where to begin? Oftentimes, with everything we've talked about, again, finding calm within that chaos. Sometimes it's viewed that looking for the calm means that we've been labeled as culturally as it being a weak thing to look for the calm. To say, oh, we could tear our way through anything and push our way through anything. But, myself, even as I went through this process, again, this process of studying and learning over the last 15 years, there were moments that I had in my life where I think, what the hell am I doing all this for? I got to get back to work. I got to get back to, life. But then I realized that the time that I recognized that this practice was really of benefit was when the chaos occurred. And I could measure myself and see as time went on how I handled things and how much better I'm handling things. And so, for those who are still even curious about this process and how it can benefit, oftentimes there's no way to know until you're actually in it. But that's not the time to learn. And so that's why there are, practices in place and opportunities like coming to work with the consultants at the Center for Optimum Living, like even having an experience with the practice of Reiki, if anyone is interested. There are many, many more ways that you can explore finding your own calm, so that within finding it, you can learn how to become that.
Let me just add to that too, because what you're describing is via positiva, the positive way. And there's also the via negativa, which is the release. I mean, sometimes, we're caught in it and tension builds and you have to what's simply called vent. You have to get, complain and get it out of your system. So then you're able to become a little more restored. And yes, sometimes Reiki does that too, where a person comes in all tense and they don't even know why I'm doing this. And then they leave, I feel so much better, or you can go and live on a perfect island somewhere, or in a monastery or an ashram. Or
Nothing bad ever happens.
You can go live in heaven, or you could try to make your own life as heavenly as you can.
Yeah.
Kristen?
I'm thinking about the day-to-day. There's the sacred space that we can use. There's the walk, the meditation, the mindfulness practice. But that can also take place throughout our day, through within whatever we have to do. Lori was mentioning her chaotic day. I experienced a chaotic day as well. And I still worked toward, as I'm sure you did also, finding moments that were calm. I didn't have time today to even take my usual walk. I didn't have time to do that. It was a very hectic, busy day. But rather than get caught up in the hecticness of my life, I can still practice within the busyness. I can still practice being centered throughout that. Sometimes it's taking 30 seconds to do 4-7-8 breathing. Sometimes it's just reminding myself to relax my shoulders. Sometimes it's just thinking in my head that I need to, okay, things feel slightly overwhelming at the moment because they're hectic, but it's just the self-talk of working through whatever I'm dealing with in the moment. So I feel like the practice is so all-encompassing. And again, I'm not perfect at it. I don't believe any of us are, or we probably wouldn't still be here. That's my personal belief. But it is a good practice. And with each moment, with each opportunity to practice that, I feel stronger. I feel more capable of staying centered. And I get closer to being centered as often as possible, if that makes sense.
And I think back to times when in a community there'd be a church and a church bell would ring and everyone would stop what they were doing and say a prayer. I remember as a boy where I grew up, and it was a pretty intense Roman Catholic Italian community. And by intense, I mean very devoted. That's what I should say. And when the church bell would ring, everyone would make the sign of the cross, or some of the older people would actually sit down and say a prayer. And, today there are gadgets you can buy that'll zap you a little bit or ring to remind you, okay, now it's time to take a breath. Or, Thich Nhat Hanh had this wonderful idea of telephone meditation, that when the phone rings, the first time it rings, you just kind of finish up what you're doing. The second time it rings, you take a breath and you clear yourself. And the third time it rings, you're ready to really be present with that person. Now, imagine the kind of order you have to have already present in your life to be able to let it go and take that breath. Because for some people, half of a ring, they've already picked up the phone. And now with cell phones, you got buzzers and all kinds of things going off all the time, continually pulling us away from a place of quiet and calm. And the place of quiet and calm where you can feel not only the passivity of that kind of energy, but also the passion, the activity of that kind of energy. So you want to bring a little more order into the life that you have, starting right where you are, whether it's in the middle of chaos or you have a nice big wide open field before the storms begin. Anyway, we hope this is of value to you. We again thank everyone and clients I have that are right there at the front lines and seeing some of the horrors of what's happening right now. And we will see you again next time. And if this is of help to you and others, please let others know. Be well, be safe, take care.